Hey everybody, welcome to the Tie-Dye Mindset. I am Greg Foster here with Jen Engle of Jengletiedyes, another amazing dye artist that I am super excited to talk to today. If you haven't checked her out, I will make sure that you guys see the Instagram page for her and her work. It is some of the most amazing tight line work and color application that has really blown me away over the last few years, and I've been just amazed by the quality of work that Jen puts out. So I wanted to bring her here today and kind of dive into the psyche of the dye artist, as we have done in the tie-dye mindset. And thank you again, Jen, for coming on and talking to us. Again, this is kind of like an open forum. We can talk about whatever you want, but I'd really like to get your take on what, where, why, how tie-dye, and kind of what led you to this path and why you still play in this realm. So thanks again for coming, and tell us a little bit about how you got into tie-dye.
Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure.
The tie-dye. Well, I've seen tie-dye for quite a few years, traveling with the dead and everything through the ages. But really what got me into it was a craft project with my daughter's field hockey team. Mom, can you help me? I said, sure, I'll give it a go. And that just had me addicted right there. I was like, okay, this is pretty neat. And from there, I just started researching, and here I am today. I mean,
how long has that journey taken you?
I think I think that was back in 2013.
Okay, so a few years for sure.
Yeah. But I mean, it took me a couple years to actually feel like, okay, I'm kind of getting the hang of it now. There was a lot of brown tie-dye, you know. And it's funny because I do have an art background. I did go to art school and everything like that. So I have an art degree, but learning, the dye itself and where it lies on the spectrum, you can have a red, but you can have a blue red or an orange red or yellow red, and kind of playing with those colors and learning how they bleed and what plays nice together. So it's a long road.
For sure.
And
Yeah, no, one of the things I try to get across to the casual dyer, especially those that I see on the group pages, is they're always at, how do you do this? How do you do that? Why isn't mine like this? And you just kind of want to grab them through the screen and say, it's practice, practice, practice. The only way you get better is practicing.
but
And
it's knowing the color wheel. I think
yes.
there's that huge mistake with a lot of people is they don't have any idea of what a color wheel is, and just knowing where colors fall on the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
And God, I wish I had a lot of money like they do. I mean, these crafters that go out there and start, and the way that they use their dye, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's excessive.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I just feel like, God, I wish I had that money to throw around like they do.
Yeah. Well, I
So
think, yeah, there is definitely a big learning curve, and they always say it's time or money, and there are a lot of people out there with a lot of time and a lot of money on their hands. Fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look for it, and they splash a lot of color and a lot of dye around, and it's either wonderful or it's not. The one thing I really love about your work is how trying to look for the right word, how your application of the dye is so it's very thought out. You can tell that you shake your head, but just that inherent knowledge of how the colors work together, I think, is
yes,
really what I'm getting. It's you can tell that there's a lot of experience behind your application of and placement of the dye versus our good friend Paul Kenny, who says spray and pray, right?
You'd really be surprised.
Yeah.
I'm an ice dyer. I mean, I love liquid dye, don't get me, but I've gotten lazy. So dye is my way to go. And, when he has his application, I said the same thing. I'm kind of like, God, people would be just dumbfounded at how I just apply the dye because I don't go in with a thought of dye place. I put stuff in a bucket and cover it with ice and sprinkle dye.
Oh my
That
God, you have just raised my level of amazement like 10 notches.
I, what it was is that I got caught up in the dye placement. I got so stuck in my head
Hmm.
that I wasn't getting where I wanted to be. And one day I was, you know what, screw it. And I just let it go and just this is what I came up with. And now that I dye, I look back on shirts and go, God, I'd love to be able to do that again. I can't.
Well, keep
I
doing what you're doing because what you're doing is amazing. And that I'll tell you what, that gives me so much hope. And probably,
when you I guess when you just let it go, like
yeah.
stop trying so hard. Because I was always trying to beat myself up, trying to get to a certain point. And I was like, you know what? Every time you open a shirt or a dress or whatever, it's different. And that's why I say to customers, I can't dye what you have in your head. When they say, can you do this? And I'm like, well, maybe someday, but that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. So when he says, I just kind of spray it on and whatever, well, that's kind of what I do too.
Yeah.
I just grab whatever dyes in front of me and I just kind of sprinkle away thinking, well, let's see how this one turns out.
Oh my God,
There's not a lot of thought process that goes into it.
that's so
So,
refreshing.
but it is, there's a lot more to it than just sprinkling dye. I mean, there is a factor of, the ratios that I use. I know what colors melt faster. So there is that thought process and layering and everything like that. But that's all trial and error.
Right. Right. And it's kind of like, driving a car, you don't get good at it. And once you are good at it, you just kind of realize, okay, these are the things I may have accomplished, but now it's just second nature.
Yeah.
And I got to say, your second nature is amazing.
Thank you.
I aspire to that level.
Thank you.
So you started out as a crafter and basically have,
Yeah.
I would say, become expert in your technique. What kind of pushed you towards your specific style, or where at what point did you consider yourself a successful dyer, if you do?
I consider myself that yet. What's successful? What's a successful dyer?
Sure.
I don't know. I started out as a crafter. I started out, looking at tutorials and stuff like that. But then I'm a hands-on learner. And like watching a video of somebody doing a Ron star, Ron doing it, and it took me probably years to figure that out because I need somebody sitting right with me. I can't learn off a video. I'm looking at it and going, how the hell is he folding that? Pause and looking at, and it's like, no, I couldn't do it. So, I worked on the fan folds. I did the designs that way. I tried crinkle, not my best. That takes a lot of strength in your hands and stuff. So what did I go for? I went for geodes. And where I really started out. And just tying and I guess building the muscles up in my hands to get where I am today.
Right.
And it's funny because the first time I ever did a star or made a star, I was like, holy shit, how did I do that? Pardon me.
No, that's good. All right.
And I was like, okay, now I have to figure out how did I fold that?
Right.
And it was just like, but once I figured it out, I was like, oh, okay. you know, and then I could figure out the different variations and angle stuff like that. But watching tutorials, I kind of got away from it because I'm one, I think I have to learn by just repetitive and doing it myself rather than watching,
Yeah, I
you
think
know.
I would agree that tutorials, even in my dye work, they've been a good foundation. Like I can watch a tutorial um, and see technique, you know, folds, ties, but like you say, until you actually get your hands into it, you don't know what how it translates into your own work, you know. And there are a few that I've had to do probably a dozen or more applications before I thought I had it down. And then when I think I have it down, my next one is like, well, let me tweak this a little bit. Oh, that's even better. So I find those tutorials as a good, you know, starting block. And then once that gun is fired and I get into it, the race is now up to me.
Yeah.
And I found the more accomplished dyers have that very similar mentality of like, you know, it really is up to you to figure this stuff out. There are people who can coach you. There's information out there to give you information, but information's only as good as its application.
Yeah.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, because, you know, I always expect people to be like, oh, well, I learned how to do this by this tutorial and this book showed me that and everything's perfect now. And the reality with
Yeah.
anything is you gotta you gotta get your hands dirty. You gotta be busy. You gotta practice.
Yes. Practice, practice, practice. And there are no mistakes in tie-dye except for making lots of brown.
Right. Hey, somebody out there loves brown.
Oh,
And
believe me, there are a lot of people that love brown.
that's
That's
another
not,
thing for the beginner. I always try with when people ask me, um, if there's a shirt that I hate, I know there's somebody out there that it's a work of art for them. So I try not to take those that I find repulsive and consider them as a loss. I consider it a lesson. And I think that
yeah,
that is an easy way to let go of frustration, because tie-dye can, I'm sure, as you know, get kind of frustrating when you're trying to do one thing and it ends up doing something else.
yeah, it is. I mean, believe me, I've had a lot of stinkers that people just gobble right up. And I'm like, what in God's name? And what my best, it'll sit there forever.
Yeah.
So it's to each his own.
Eye of the beholder, right? Eye of the
Yep.
beholder.
Yeah.
So you put a ton of good work out there. Are you at that level where, you know, you're seeing a good enough amount of income that that's what you're doing these days, or have
Oh,
you?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah. This is my sole income.
Well, that's
So,
great. What kind of helped you along in making that transition from a day job into tie-dye full time?
um, what helped me? It's trying to eat. No, I don't know. It's just, I don't know. You know, I've always sold my art. So I guess it was just, you know, moving to a different medium
Mm-hmm.
and, you know, finding that you could put so much more out of this medium than, you know, sitting down and say doing a illustration
Mm-hmm.
or
Right.
where, you know, that takes a lot more time.
Mm.
So if that makes any sense to
Oh,
you.
totally. Yeah, I mean, I used to do a lot of sculpting in metalwork and woodwork and stonework, and you know, I could spend 2, 3 months on a piece and still not be happy with it, and I
Yeah.
can jam out a shirt in a couple hours and be like, oh yeah, okay, good job, next.
Yeah.
You know, or stockpile a whole bunch of tied shirts and then spend an afternoon or a day dyeing everything, and
Yeah.
you got almost a full collection right there. Uh,
Yeah.
I can certainly appreciate that shift of time. You know, and as an artist, um, there's got to be kind of a balance for you between the artistry and, for lack of a better term, the business side of it. How do you kind of balance those two?
I hate the business side of it. I absolutely deplore the business side of it.
Mm.
If I had my way, I'd just be making art. I mean, I'm not a numbers person. I'm not a tech savvy person. It's just that takes up more time than doing the artwork itself. So I just, plugging away, trying to, balance it. And it really is, that's the most time consuming part of it.
Hmm.
You're not a business tech savvy kind of person, and getting your, artwork out there, I think you kind of lack in the whole tie-dye game.
For sure. Yeah, especially if you're going at it, full-time professional, there's that, trying to strike that balance between, okay, I got to work on the business versus, work in the business. And
Yeah.
I know, I consider myself an artist, but, there are a lot of other pieces of the puzzle that bring in income for me. And I've always struggled at specifically determining value of my work, saying this is worth X amount of dollars to a collector versus, it only took me this many hours, this much in materials. Okay, let's mark it up 50%, whereas, you can miss the mark a lot of the times on pricing it. So, yeah, the
I know.
business numbers.
Your dyer's telling me, no, you have to up your prices. And I'm like, I don't want to price myself out of, the game here. I just feel like, I don't know. I just don't want to price my stuff. I like to move my stuff. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
I like to let everybody get a piece that they can.
Hmm. Hmm.
I think fair. I'm not like gouging anybody or anything like that. And, you know, and I wish people, like customers, would know the process as to what actually goes into, the whole process from start to beginning, because
Right.
it's not just folding a shirt and splashing dye on it. There's research to be done about materials, and it goes way beyond.
Yeah.
And and then it's the business part of it too, is uploading it and photography and all of that stuff. So there's a lot that goes into it. And then when you have that customer, it's like, oh my god, look at how expensive these are. And I'm like, well, but
Go to Walmart and buy a tie-dye.
well, it's not even that. It's just like, okay, well, I don't know. My prices aren't, they don't reflect your budget. It reflects the time and energy that I've put into it. So,
Yeah, it's and I find that in my hot sauce world as well, is it's really hard to put a price aside from, the hard costs and the sort of soft skills it takes to create something. um I don't want to discount the 25 years of experience I have in the culinary world, in developing a flavor of sauce, or the expertise that I've gained in growing and knowing about peppers and how they play on the tongue. And just the same thing with the dye art is, I find it is really important for the very accomplished dye artists to not lose sight of the fact that there is a ton of time behind even what it takes just to make one shirt, let alone the history, years and years and years of craft development. And you're right, it is difficult to express that to an undereducated consumer. Um, and is it really our responsibility to do that, or do we leave that responsibility up to them? Who's to say? And I can appreciate, wanting to price your stuff to move versus, sitting yourself up on a pedestal saying, well, this is $1,000 piece of art. You should be thankful that I allow you to buy it, right?
Yeah.
Because we, like you said, we got to feed ourselves.
Yeah.
And no matter what price point you put it at, you're always going to get pushback. You're always going to get pushback from somebody. I've had sauces that were $6 pushback. I've had t-shirts I've sold for $10 pushback. It's like, oh, give me a break, people. It's noise.
I know that feeling. Like at Walmart and get one.
Yeah, exactly. The quality is there.
Yeah.
So now that we've gone in that direction, let's reel it in a little bit. Let me ask you: is there anybody in particular that has kind of helped or inspired you, or anybody that stands out in your mind as far as your craft in dye art, or is there? I don't know. I guess I'll leave it at that as the question. Is there anybody that has really influenced you?
When I started out, it was on that Addicted to Tie-Dyeing site. And I'm still on it. I do post on it. I enjoy it. I enjoy to see other people's work. Lorraine Cook, who's an administrator on there, she has been a huge help throughout my years. And we've created a friendship. And, I've never met her personally, but I've talked her into doing some tutorials for me, personal tutorials with strapping a GoPro on her head.
Oh, that's awesome.
One for me. It just lots of laughs, and she, has really made it enjoyable for me. There are other dyers. I mean, I like to push towards the women because, I watched your other tutorials and all the guys are like, oh, Paul Kenny. Yeah, he's great. But Paul Kenny, come on. Everybody's doing Paul Kenny.
Exactly.
Great dyer. I don't believe she's on any of the websites or any of the dyeing sites anymore, but Debbie Krell, fantastic work. And she kind of brought her tie-dyeing into another level by creating purses and stuff like that. And they're fabulous. Obviously Melanie Brummer, that was my first tie-dye book that I ever got. So that was fantastic. Who else? Trina Allen of Spoonful of Colors. Of her work. I think what the women bring to the tie-dye groups is that they're kind of busting out of the t-shirt mold and adding a whole nother level of class to tie-dye, I should say. It's like bringing it into the ages for older women, because not everybody can wear the cute little yoga pants and, cut off shorts, or they shouldn't, but some do. But I'm just saying, it's like they're bringing a whole nother level. Let's see who else. Sarah Norwood. I think she's in Australia. Yeah. Love her. Absolutely love her work. Andrea Romano is another one that I really enjoy her work. And I think she's kind of broken off and created her own pattern skirt / tops and stuff like that. So she has her own thing, but her dye work is fabulous too. I think I came into the whole learning scene and everything with like Rob Norwood. I think we're kind of like started at the same time, and he's gone gangbusters, which is fabulous. Good for him. And I'm trying to think who else. I like Jonathan Horn's work. He's out of West Palm Beach. He's brought it up another level. He's doing beach blankets now, but with his original tie-dye, and so he's kind of on that upper level too, with linen shirts and everything. he's in an area where he can really push the limit with his price too, down in Palm Beach. So,
Yeah.
there's a whole bunch. There's different, levels of, talent, and everybody just, everybody's good. Like I said, everybody has their little niche, and there's so many people out there
Yeah.
that, each one is different. So kudos to everybody.
Agreed. That is, one of the things I love about this world is the more and more I spend time in it, the more beautiful it becomes, just from the amount of artists, the different styles, the different applications, and the different takes on it. Some are very tight-fisted, some are very open. There's that spectrum in between, and I think everybody is entitled. Just kind of like humanity in general. I think everybody's kind of entitled to their own opinion, their own way about it, their own approach. Frankly, free of judgment. At least I try to approach it that way, because each style, each person has its own beauty, its own appeal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own style.
Yeah.
You can look at certain dyers, like say going to a dead show. I'd be walking around going, oh, well, there's so-and-so shirt. There's so-and-so. And
Right.
it was just, you could tell by the dyers, which I think is pretty fabulous. But whereas other people are like, that's a great dye. Whose is it? So,
Yeah.
it's fun.
I'm getting to that point now where I can start to see some of those signatures, in the style of dye, and I can be like, oh yeah, look at that. I know that guy.
Tell by their colors too,
Yeah.
and their colors and choices. So
Mhm.
I pretty, cool and unique to everybody.
Well, it has just blown my mind the way that color has invaded my life in a way that I've never seen it before. Have you had that sort of same kind of well, you've got a deep art background, so color theory has been on your mind for quite some time. I was more of a 3D conceptual artist, where I wasn't playing with color as much, but more shape and figure.
Mhm.
And when I really got into tie-dye was when I really, the world kind of opened up to me again, as far as the dramatics of color, be it in a sunset or just out for a walk. Um, was there any sort of those kind of like epiphany moments when you got into whole hog into the tie-dye world?
No, because I just look at, I'm looking around my house. Everything is like, you got a yellow here, I got a blue there, we've got a red there. It's just, we're full of color. We've always been colorful. I grew up in a house that was colorful,
Mm.
and just, just like color. We're kind of like all over the place.
That's really cool. Yeah, I grew up in a house full of music, so especially singing, and it's been one of those things where it permeates your entire being of who
Yeah.
you are as a person, when you've got color around you, when you have appreciation for it. My parents were both big intellects, so they were always reading books, and so I've been a reader myself, and yeah, it's amazing how those things translate into our life. I was going to ask, and it just escaped my brain, what I was going to ask you. Oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Squirrel.
How do you feel? So I'll go to one of my standards. How do you feel tie-dye moving into the mainstream, and not to say that it's leaving counterculture, but getting more mainstream? How do you think that affects the community as a whole?
It depends on what you feel tie-dye is, because you look at some of these big labels, and some of it is just so ridiculous. I don't consider it tie-dye, but it is, but I don't know. It's just everybody conceives it differently. It's still art, some form of art. That's more in a fashion sense, you know. Um,
Do you feel that like placement in Walmart or other kind of mainstream access dilutes the art form, or do you think that helps uh, bring awareness? How do you kind of?
I think it bring awareness. Look at Walmart. Yes, everybody can own something that's colorful and tie-dye. Good for them. But I mean, it also sparks interest in, well, if I have this, maybe there's something better out there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, or, I look at, some of these big labels. Like my brother lives in New York City, and he'll send me a picture of something that's just absolutely ridiculous, like a t-shirt that's all ratty and holy. And I said, they're just buying a label. That name is already on this garment. It doesn't make the garment any better. They're just paying for that label.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it dilutes the art form at all. I just think it brings more awareness to it. And I think people that love it are going to seek it out.
Agreed. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're not seeing your art collectors in Walmart looking for wall hanging. You're looking art collectors are going to galleries and places
Absolutely.
they can find real art. Well,
Yeah.
that's all in the eye of the beholder, I think.
Well, I know you, it's like saying, people are like, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a tie-dye artist. And then they go, oh, she makes swirls, and it's like,
Right.
no,
Oh, tell me about your latest t-shirt.
you do. And, you take a picture out and you show them and they're like, oh, well, that's not tie-dye. Because everybody has that preconception of a swirl from Walmart. No, so it's just opening up people's eyes, because I don't like to say tie-dye artist, because that's the first place they go.
It is, unfortunately, it is. Yeah,
Fair.
but it's kind of where that sort of common denominator of reference for the the uninformed of this art world is there it is. But hopefully we can conquer the world and everybody will be colorful.
One person at a time.
So okay, last question I want to ask you is what do you think is one of the most ridiculous encounters or ridiculous things that has happened to you in tie-dye? Be it a comment from a customer or somebody walking by on the street or an experience you had while working or something like that.
It's ridiculous. I had a lady, I'm not going to name names, that was from a group who continually hounded me. Where do you get your blanks? Where do you get your blanks? And I blocked her every which way, but Sunday on social media. And she showed up at a festival and rummaged through my stuff looking at labels. And I was, are you freaking kidding me? Are you freaking kidding me?
Right.
Yeah, I was just dumbfounded.
That is pretty darn ridiculous.
And a hell of a lot of money to get into that music festival too.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
But I mean, the lengths that people will go for certain things it's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's what I kept telling her, like, why would I tell you my source? I said, this is my business.
Yeah.
Like, I've done a lot of research. I've bought a lot of crap just to find the perfect thing to dye. And I'm just supposed to hand that over to you? So that was one of the craziest things ever. I was like mortified when I saw her walk into my booth. I was like, you're kidding me. And she like 4 hours away.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Wow.
Instantly.
That's I've seen some pretty crazy things in my day, especially at hot sauce festivals. But that's like obsessive crazy.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that was
but you can see, that I think that speaks to a larger piece of what we see in some of these communities online is that desire for immediate gratification via
uh,
tutorials and how do you do this and why do I do that and what's your dye ratio, and there is a difference between, like we were talking about earlier, sharing knowledge and earning knowledge. And there are definitely a good chunk of people who don't want to earn the knowledge, they just want it to be given to them so they can be these amazing dye artists on their first go. And then there are, like myself, I would ask some of the people that I admired how they did a specific thing, and I'd get a very general answer. And the thing I would always get back to is like, I know I've got to make it my own. You know, I've been doing this, but I'm struggling. Can you give me a tip to get past it? I think that's a much easier entry point, is, point me in the right direction rather than giving me the answer, because
yeah.
I'd much rather figure it out for myself, as long as I kind of have, a road sign at least pointing me in the right direction.
Do you know who I asked the very first time? I'm such an idiot. I went right to the top. I went directly to Courtney Pollock.
I was just going to say, how do you do your work?
I was like, you're an ass. But you know what? He was gracious enough to answer me.
Yeah.
And did answer a couple of my questions, which was fantastic because I didn't know. I was like, well, who would you go to? I went right to the top.
Let's go
I
right
love
to the master.
absolutely. Let's see if he answers me.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
And people still do that today. It's like I get people asking for tutorials. I get people asking, how do you do this? And sometimes I answer, sometimes I don't.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm that guarded because there's so many variables in,
Right.
tie dyeing. I've let out some secrets of mine, from the beginning when I first started. And I can't even remember who told me this was, practice with your ice dyeing to see how, your dye bleeds. Put an ice cube on a paper towel and
Mhm.
sprinkle dye on it and watch it bleed. And I was like, God damn, you just saved me like 20 shirts.
Yep.
So it's just those little tips and tricks, but it's also, it's trial and error. I could tell you how to do whatever, but you're never going to have the same ice as me. You're never going to have, the same ratios, whatever. And there's a new girl, I can't think of her name, Ellie, I think, and she's with, I can't think of it, some kind of toad company, whatever, I'll figure it out. But sorry, Ellie. She asked me, she's a friend of a friend, and she asked me, and she's really killing it right now. And I'm excited for her. She's starting out and just kind of working her way into it. But those are the type of people that I want to share with because she really is passionate about it. She's not a crafter. She's actually, a college student that's, into something else, but this is kind of like a side hustle for her. So I like what she's putting out. I think it's amazing. So I do share, but don't ask me where I get my goddamn blanks from. That's
Jen,
not
where did
share.
you get that one skirt? Can you tell me?
I know I get. And it's like, God, I spent like 6 hours scouring the world for that.
Oh yeah. Well, I look at it and this will kind of be our final thought. We're coming up almost on an hour. Uh,
Really?
I look
Wow.
at it in a way of almost admiration to a level of blindness of I'm so enthralled with your work that I would like to hopefully be able to emulate it in some form or another. Um, but then that adoration blinds me to the fact that I'm being completely inappropriate and rude and overly persistent about something that obviously I shouldn't be asking about, you know. And it's, I try to take those, because I get it a lot with the pepper eating and the hot sauce, and even now with my tie-dye. I look at it more of, okay, people are really enjoying what I do very, 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 very much. And I don't think I can quantify that personally into how much they actually appreciate what I'm doing. So I got to take it more as a compliment than as, you know, a pecking. But at the same time, they're pecking at you, you know, and
There's a lot of
it's
tactic
hard to
going
shut
on.
it down without being, you know, without being an a-hole. So
You know, I point people in directions. I point people to the tie-dyeing groups that they haven't even heard of. So get in there, research. But I always tell them, I said, don't ask any questions. Figure it out.
Yep.
I said, actually get in there, read, and experiment.
Yep.
Play around, fool around, figure out what works for you.
Have fun with it.
Absolutely. And if you're not having fun, quit.
Oh yeah.
Save your money.
Yeah. Even if you're frustrated and you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. Fun. I mean, every time you open it up and see what you made, I mean, that's fun.
That is, it's like Christmas every time.
Absolutely.
Well,
I
Jen,
totally.
this has been awesome. I thank you so much again for taking the time to talk with me. You certainly hit a lot of the points I wanted to talk about and try to get out of people. I learned a ton. I always love hearing what the people the artists I admire share what's going on inside their head. So it's been very educational. It's been a ton of fun. You seem like a great lady, and I'm super stoked to talk to you. And I'm going to follow up on some of these artists that inspire you, because I too agree that I think women in the dye art community have a lot to share. And I was super excited to get you as my first female interviewee, and certainly hopefully not the last, because women tend to have a good take on things that men, you know, tend to block out with our animal brains. So I appreciate you coming.
With your animal brains.
Oh,
It's Sleepy Toad tie-dye, I think her name is, Ellie. That's the girl that I gave out my secrets to. Check
okay.
her out. She's on Instagram too.
All right. I certainly will. Well, Jen, thanks again. This was
Thanks,
a ton of
nice meeting
fun.
you.
Likewise. And I look forward to getting a piece of work for my wife and for myself from you. I'll make sure to reach out and put in an order. And I will post all of your Instagram and stuff in the description. Everybody, don't forget to like and subscribe and say thank you to Jen. What an amazing artist. What an amazing person. And we'll catch you guys on the flip side.
Go Bills!